Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lessons from Life. My name is Ethan. If someone had asked me 10 years ago what love looked like, I would have smiled and described a girl with chestnut brown hair, bright green eyes, and a laugh that could make even the worst day feel worth living. Her name was Lily. For years, I believed our love story was the kind people wrote novels about, the kind that survives distance, heartbreak, and time. I was wrong. But to understand how everything fell apart, you first have to know how it all began. I grew up in a quiet little town where everyone knew everyone. There wasn't much excitement there. The same grocery store, the same school, the same streets, the same faces. Most people dreamed of leaving someday. I was one of them. My father worked long hours as a mechanic, and my mother managed a small bakery downtown. They weren't rich, but they taught me something money could never buy. Be honest, work hard, and never take people you love for granted. At the time, those words sounded ordinary. Years later, they became the hardest lesson of my life. The summer I turned 17 changed everything. School had just ended, and I had taken a part-time job at the local bookstore. It wasn't glamorous. Most days I organized dusty shelves, helped customers find novels, and swept the floor before closing. One rainy afternoon, the front door opened. A girl rushed inside, completely soaked from the storm. She apologized to everyone for dripping water on the floor. Then she laughed. I don't know why that laugh stayed with me. Maybe because it sounded so genuine. Maybe because it reminded me that happiness could exist even on gloomy days. She walked over to the travel section. After pretending to organize books nearby for nearly 10 minutes, I finally gathered enough courage to speak. Looking for somewhere to escape? She smiled. Actually, I'm looking for somewhere to dream. That was the first sentence Lily ever said to me. I still remember it, word for word. She visited the bookstore almost every week after that. Sometimes she bought books. Sometimes she just sat in the reading corner for hours. Eventually, we started talking about books, movies, music, our dreams. She wanted to become a photographer. She said photographs could freeze moments before they disappeared forever. I wanted to become an architect. I wanted to design homes where people would build happy memories. Funny, isn't it? We were both obsessed with creating things that lasted forever. Neither of us realized that forever can disappear in a single moment. One evening, after my shift ended, I found Lily sitting outside the bookstore, watching the sunset. Without looking at me, she asked, "Ethan, do you ever feel like you're meant for something bigger?" I laughed. Every single day. She nodded. Me, too. We sat there for almost 2 hours talking about everything and nothing. For the first time in my life, silence didn't feel awkward. It felt comfortable, safe, like I had known her forever. As the weeks passed, our friendship became routine. Morning texts, afternoon coffee, late-night phone calls, weekend walks through the park. She started teasing me about always wearing the same gray hoodie. I teased her for carrying a camera everywhere. She claimed every ordinary moment deserved to be remembered. I rolled my eyes every time. Secretly, I loved that about her. One Saturday morning, she invited me to hike up a nearby hill before sunrise. I almost said no. I hated waking up early. But somehow, she convinced me. At 4:30 in the morning, we started climbing. Neither of us spoke much. The air was cold. The stars were still visible. When we finally reached the top, the sky slowly turned orange, then pink, then gold. Lily lifted her camera. Click, click, click. After taking dozens of photos, she suddenly lowered the camera and looked at me instead. You know something? What? I don't think cameras can capture moments like this. I frowned. Why not? She smiled. Because the best memories aren't seen. They're felt. I didn't answer. I simply looked at her. And somewhere inside me, I realized I wasn't just falling for the sunrise anymore. I was falling for the girl standing beside me. The problem was, I had no idea if she felt the same. For weeks I kept my feelings hidden. Every time I wanted to tell her, fear stopped me. What if she only saw me as a friend? What if confessing ruined everything? Sometimes protecting a friendship feels safer than risking your heart. So I stayed silent. Then one afternoon, something happened that changed everything. The bookstore owner asked me to deliver a package to a nearby art gallery. When I arrived, I found Lily there. Her photographs were hanging on the walls. I had no idea she had entered a photography competition. People stood around admiring her work. One picture caught everyone's attention. It showed a lonely bench under an old oak tree. Simple, peaceful, beautiful. But something made my heart race. Sitting on that bench was me. I hadn't even known she had taken the picture. The title beneath it read, "The person who makes ordinary days extraordinary." I stood there frozen. She noticed me from across the room. Our eyes met. She looked embarrassed. I couldn't stop smiling. That photograph told me everything words couldn't. That evening, after the gallery closed, we walked through town together. Neither of us mentioned the photo. Finally, I stopped walking. "Lily." She turned around. I think I took a deep breath. "I'm falling in love with you." For a few seconds, she didn't say anything. Those were the longest seconds of my life. Then she walked toward me, close enough that I could hear her heartbeat. "I was wondering how long it would take you." She laughed softly. "I've loved you for months." Before I could say another word, she wrapped her arms around me. At that moment, the world seemed to disappear. No traffic, no people, no worries. Just the two of us. I truly believe that nothing could ever separate us. If only I had known how wrong I was. Because the happiest chapter of my life was quietly leading me toward the most heartbreaking surprise I could have ever imagined. And I had no idea that somewhere in the background, fate had already begun writing an ending neither of us would see coming. The weeks after that night felt like a dream I never wanted to wake up from. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving each day, I was living it. Lily had this incredible way of making ordinary moments feel unforgettable. We didn't need expensive restaurants or luxury vacations. A cup of coffee, a walk through the park, watching the rain from my car. Those little moments became my favorite memories. Sometimes she'd grab my hand and say, "Close your eyes." I'd laugh. "What now?" "Just trust me." I'd close my eyes, and she'd lead me somewhere nearby. When I opened them, we'd be standing in front of a beautiful sunset, or an empty field filled with wildflowers, or an old bridge overlooking the river. She believed beauty existed everywhere. "You just have to slow down enough to notice it," she'd always say. Looking back now, I realize she wasn't only teaching me how to see the world, she was teaching me how to love it. Almost every weekend, we visited new places together. Lily carried her camera, I carried our snacks. She took pictures of everything: children laughing, old couples holding hands, birds flying across the evening sky. She once told me something I'll never forget. "People think photographs preserve memories," she smiled, "but memories actually preserve us." At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant. Now, those words echo inside my heart every single day. One evening, we drove to the beach just to watch the sunset. The wind was strong. The waves crashed against the shore. We sat on the hood of my old pickup truck. Without warning, Lily leaned her head against my shoulder. "Ethan?" "Yeah?" "If one day everything changes." I looked at her. "Would you still choose me?" I laughed. "What kind of question is that?" "I'm serious." I gently held her hand. "Lily, I'll choose you every single time." She smiled, but something about her expression felt different, almost sad. I asked if everything was okay. She quickly nodded. "I'm just overthinking." I believed her. I wish I hadn't. As summer turned into autumn, our relationship became stronger. Our families finally met. My mother absolutely adored Lily. She often invited her over to help bake pies at the bakery. Watching them laugh together made my heart feel full. My father wasn't very emotional, but one afternoon, while fixing an old truck, he quietly said, "She's a good girl." I smiled. "I know." He looked at me for a long moment. "Don't lose her." At the time, I thought that was impossible. A few months later, Lily's photography career started taking off. One of her pictures won a national competition. Soon, galleries from different cities began contacting her. I couldn't have been prouder. "This is your dream," I told her. "You've earned it." She hugged me tightly. "I couldn't have done it without you." But with every opportunity came a difficult choice. Most of the exhibitions were hundreds of miles away. She would need to travel, sometimes for weeks. I told her to go. I refused to become the reason she abandoned her dreams. Love shouldn't be a cage. It should be wings. The first few trips weren't easy. We missed each other terribly. Still, we made it work. Video calls every night, long messages every morning, random photos throughout the day. She'd send pictures of mountains, busy city streets, beautiful cafes, and she'd always end every message the same way: "I miss home." I knew she wasn't talking about our town. She meant us. Then something slowly began to change. Not overnight, little by little. She started answering my messages later than usual. Our phone calls became shorter. Sometimes she'd cancel at the last minute, saying she was exhausted after a long day of work. I understood. At least, I told myself I did. Dreams require sacrifice. I didn't want to become another burden. Still, a strange feeling settled deep inside my heart. The kind of feeling you can't explain. The kind that whispers, something isn't right. One Friday evening, she came back home after nearly 3 weeks away. I planned a surprise dinner. Candles, her favorite pasta, fresh flowers, everything. When she arrived, she smiled, but it wasn't the smile I remembered. It looked forced. She thanked me. We ate together. We talked. Yet every few minutes, she'd glance at her phone. I tried pretending not to notice. But eventually I asked, "Is everything okay?" She looked startled. "Oh, yeah, just work. Nothing more, nothing less." I wanted to believe her, because sometimes love makes you ignore the answers standing right in front of you. A week later, we visited the hill where we'd watched our very first sunrise together. The place where I'd realized I was falling in love. The sky looked exactly the same. The wind felt the same. Even the birds sounded the same. But somehow, everything felt different. Lily stood quietly, holding her camera. She didn't take a single photograph. Instead, she stared at the horizon. "Ethan, I need you to promise me something. Anything. If life ever separates us." My heart skipped a beat. "Don't spend your life hating me." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" She looked down. "Nothing." She forced another smile. "Forget I said anything." I wanted to ask more questions, but I didn't. Sometimes silence creates the biggest regrets. As winter approached, I started planning something special. I had secretly been saving money for almost a year, skipping lunches, working overtime, taking extra weekend shifts. Every dollar had a purpose. I walked into a small jewelry store one snowy afternoon. Inside a glass case sat a simple engagement ring. Nothing flashy, nothing expensive, just elegant, exactly like Lily. The elderly shop owner smiled. "Someone special?" I nodded. "The most special person in my life." He carefully placed the ring inside a small velvet box. As I walked out of the store, I imagined the rest of our lives together. A little house, family dinners, children running through the backyard. Growing old side by side. I had never felt more certain about anything. What I didn't know was that Lily had been carrying a secret far heavier than I could ever imagine. a secret hidden behind every smile, every hug, every whispered "I love you." And in just a few days, that secret would arrive at my doorstep. Not from Lily, but inside a single handwritten letter, a letter that would completely change the story of our love. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Lessons from Life. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. This is the hardest part of my story to tell. Even after all these years, every word still hurts. But maybe someone listening today needs to hear it. 3 days after I bought the engagement ring, I woke up earlier than usual. It was a cold Monday morning. Snow covered the sidewalks outside my apartment. As I opened my front door to leave for work, I noticed a small white envelope lying on the welcome mat. There was no stamp, no return address, only my name, Ethan. I picked it up, thinking Lily had left me a sweet surprise. She loved writing handwritten notes. She once told me, "Texts disappear, handwritten words stay forever." I smiled before opening it. I had no idea that smile would disappear within seconds. Inside the envelope was a single folded letter. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. My hands started shaking as I unfolded the paper. It read, "My dearest Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't tell you the truth face to face. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I loved you too much to watch your heart break while I was standing in front of you. Please don't come looking for me. Please don't blame yourself. And whatever happens, don't stop living your life. You once promised you'd choose me every time. Today, I'm asking you to choose yourself instead. I love you, always, Lily." That was it. No explanation, no reason, just goodbye. I couldn't breathe. I called her immediately. Her phone was switched off. I drove to her apartment. The landlord told me she had moved out the previous evening. No forwarding address, no information, nothing. I called her parents. They sounded just as confused as I was. They hadn't heard from her either. It was as if she had simply vanished. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. I searched everywhere. Every city where she'd held an exhibition. Every coffee shop we had visited together. Every place she had ever loved. Nothing. People kept telling me to move on. But how do you move on when you don't even know why someone left? The silence was worse than the heartbreak. At least heartbreak has answers. Silence has only questions. Almost 6 months later, I was cleaning my apartment. I couldn't bear looking at the engagement ring anymore. I opened the drawer where I'd hidden it. That's when I noticed something underneath. The velvet box. Another envelope. It had somehow slipped beneath the drawer lining. I had never seen it before. Again, it was from Lily. This time the letter was much longer. "Ethan, if you found this letter, then I've probably been gone for a long time. I asked my friend Sarah to hide it where only you would eventually discover it. I needed time, not for me, for you. The day I asked whether you'd still choose me if everything changed, I'd already received the results from my medical tests. The doctors found an aggressive illness. They couldn't promise how much time I had. I knew exactly what you would do. You would quit your dreams. You would spend every minute trying to save me. You would watch me slowly become someone I never wanted you to remember. I couldn't let that happen. I wanted you to remember the girl who laughed in bookstores, who chased sunrises, who believed beauty existed everywhere. Not the girl lying in a hospital bed. Please don't hate me. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because loving you meant letting you keep living. Forever yours, Lily." I read those words again and again and again. The tears wouldn't stop. For months I had convinced myself she no longer loved me. The truth was exactly the opposite. She loved me so deeply that she believed walking away was an act of love. I don't know whether she was right. I don't know whether I would have made the same choice. All I know is that she never gave me the chance to choose. I eventually contacted Sarah. She cried before she even spoke. Then she quietly told me the rest. Lily had spent her final months in a small hospice several states away. She never stopped talking about me. She carried one photograph everywhere she went, the one she'd secretly taken of me sitting beneath the old oak tree. The photograph titled, "The Person Who Makes Ordinary Days Extraordinary." Sarah handed me Lily's camera. Inside were thousands of photographs: sunrises, rainstorms, smiling strangers, children playing, old couples holding hands, and hundreds of pictures of us. Moments I didn't even know she'd captured. Hidden between the final photos was one last image. It wasn't of a landscape. It wasn't of a sunset. It was the engagement ring. She had found it before she left. She had known. She had known I was going to ask her to marry me. Years have passed since then. The pain never completely disappeared. It simply became quieter. I eventually became an architect, just as I dreamed. The first house I ever designed had one special room, a bright studio with enormous windows, a place where sunlight poured in every morning. I named it Lily's Room, not because she ever lived there, but because every dream deserves a place where it can keep breathing. Sometimes people ask if I've ever fallen in love again. I smile. Love isn't a competition. The people who truly change your life are never replaced. They're carried with you, in memories, in lessons, in the quiet moments when nobody else is watching. Every year, on the anniversary of the day we first met in that little bookstore, I climb the same hill before sunrise. I bring her old camera. I take exactly one photograph. Not because I want to remember, but because she taught me that the most beautiful moments aren't captured by cameras. They're captured by the heart. If there's one lesson my story has taught me, it's this: never leave the people you love wondering how you feel. Life changes without warning. Tomorrow isn't promised. Say the words, make the call, take the trip, forgive the mistake, hold the hand, because one ordinary day can become the memory that stays with someone forever. Thank you for listening to my story. And if Lily could speak to you today, I think she'd leave you with the same words she once told me. Slow down. Beauty exists everywhere. You just have to notice it.